Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Today, my very special guest is Beverley Blass. Beverly has over 35 years of experience in the field of holistic health. She is President Emeritus of the International Association for Colon Hydrotherapy and has been a mentor, guide, and therapist to thousands of clients, including celebrities, athletes, and executives from all over the world, as she helps them to improve their health, vitality, and well-being. The discussion with Beverly was wide-ranging as we discuss how her childhood experiences set the stage for her endeavors into holistic healing. We did experience some Skype audio noise for the first few minutes of the show, but after the 5-minute mark, the audio clears up. And so without further ado, here's the conversation with Beverly. Well, folks, we have a great show for you today. My guest is Beverley Blass, and Beverly's going to talk to us about structured water, about fasting, and how the food industry is actually very unhealthy and essentially poisoning us. But before we do that, Beverly, because you are a first-time guest, I was hoping that you can take us through your journey in life, where you started, and what led to the things that you're doing today. We did speak a little bit offline before we got started with the show, and I know your journey starts with some paranormal experiences. So if you could start there, that would be terrific.
I was born and raised in Scotland. Was very, very connected as a child. I felt like I knew everything. I was happy. I felt connected to just the universe. It just made sense to me that we were all connected, and I didn't understand anything other than that when I was little. When I was about 3 years old, my father used to love to take us to Europe for warm weather. In Scotland, it was pretty grim. You know, if it was sunny in the morning, you knew it was going to rain in the afternoon. So we were in Switzerland, and I was learning how to roller skate, but nobody taught me how to stop. So I put the roller skates on, and I saw this door ahead of me, and I didn't know what to do, and sure enough, my arm went right through that glass window. And it was a very obviously traumatic experience. And things changed after that. I was more sensitive. I was aware of things, and I started to see things in front of me that nobody else could see. And it was confusing to me. At first they had a form, or they looked like somebody else. And this would occur every single day. And it wasn't so frightening when I was little, but as I got older, what would happen was I would get a strange feeling in my body first. And then I would get a sense of that there was something other than myself near me. I could see it, but nobody else could see it. And it was not a good feeling. It was a frightening feeling. There was a sensation of harm that was going to happen. So what used to happen as I got older on a daily basis, I used to pass out from the fear. I was terrified. And I think around the age of 10 or 11, still asking questions, people would say to me, it's just your imagination, you had a dream, it's not real. I would get the sense that...
So this happened at night, Beverly?
Most of the time at night, but it happened in the daytime also. And I was also in a private girls' school. So I felt like what was happening was I was a free spirit that was being very much shut down in terms of having to go to this school that had no creativity. It was very dark. Coming home and having to deal with this and nobody really understanding. So, yes, it would very often happen later on, but it did happen at one time when I was older and I was driving. So it was a sense of, I could feel the sensation, and then the shadow, I feel like it was a male presence most of the time, put out his arm to touch my shoulder, and it was so horrific. I would pass out. What I feel now over time that I've learned that the passing out had to do with a protection for me. And there were also, as much as there was dark shadow beings that I think fed on I was sick a lot, and I think it was the food. We can talk about that a little later.
Sure.
Because the food I felt made me sick, and I would say, I don't want to eat that food. It makes me feel sick. And nobody then really related food to your health. So they would say, no, you have to eat that. You're going to be big and strong. And I felt what it was doing was helping this, whatever it was, feed off of me. When I passed out, I felt like the protection of my heart and my soul was protected by light beings. I feel like they took me somewhere for protection. When I was 17, my brother and I were in the kitchen, and he said something fresh to me. And I said, you can't talk to me like that. And he left the kitchen, actually. And then as I got up and walked towards the door, which was a etched glass, thick glass door, weaved with leaves, all of a sudden I felt this huge energy, so powerful that I went right through the glass door and was on the other side. And don't actually remember going through it, but I immediately felt like he pushed me. And they thought I meant my brother. I didn't mean that at all. I meant that it was this energy that had been plaguing me for all these years had finally, somehow, with tremendous force, pushed me through the glass door.
Now, was the glass door really there? I mean, as far as physically there, anybody else could see it?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I was on the other side of it. It was a glass door. It was shattered, completely shattered. And my mother saw me and I think she went into shock because she left the room and called my father. My father came. I know there was an ambulance that came. They wrapped me up. I don't remember all of that. I must have been in shock, but I do remember that I had to choose between, light and dark. Like there was a moment of choice where I just said, I want health. I want healing. I want myself. I want my energy. I want life. I want light. That energy was gone. It never came back after, 3 to 17. It was there. So I do believe that having made that choice set me on a course of my whole life. But the results and the response from all of that, I ended up coming to the United States. That's a whole other story. But in the United States, I was in New York and in Massachusetts, was diagnosed with MS and said, no way. I'm not doing this. And I said, please, I don't know what to do, but I need some divine intervention here. I need help. So what ended up happening was I found a doctor in New York City who was 92 years old, an old European naturopathic doctor from Germany. He was up in the tower on 42nd Street, so it was a little like, oh, I'm not sure about this. So he read my stuff and he said, listen, I don't care what you've got. It's not important. He said, what I need you to do is do what I tell you and you'll get better. He said, no food. Stop eating immediately. You can only have raw food if you're going to eat anything. And I need you to come into my office every week, do heat treatments, hot and cold treatments, and do colonics. And I said, every week? He said, every week. And I said, but I don't have the money to do that. I was a kid. He said, I don't need your money. I'm 92. Just pay it forward. And I didn't know what he meant back then. He said, go out and buy a juicer, and any vegetable you see, put it through that juicer. Any fruit, put it through the juicer. He said, and you can't eat anything else. That's it. He said, and grains are the poison of humanity. He said, don't touch them, ever. Don't touch them ever again. So, I don't know. I just showed up there. He did everything himself besides the colonics. And I started to feel better. I started to feel like I was waking up to feeling like, gee, this is what I used to feel like when I was a kid. And over 2 years, it wasn't an overnight thing. It's not like next week I felt 100%. It took about 2.5 years, but all my symptoms went away. And I'm like, oh my God, if it helped me. And, you know, in those 2 years, I was reading everything, trying to find out what the heck was going on. I thought if I could get better, then other people can get better. So I went to colonic school. I went to herbology school with this ex-nun called Arcus Flynn in, down in the East Village. She had an apothecary, and behind she had school. You went to learn how to work with herbs. So, I mean, for me, that was like, it was no longer, it was just, I was pulled in every direction to go find out about natural sources in terms of nature, that you didn't need anything else, that, you know, inside we knew how to get better, but we've forgotten. I watched my brother go through the whole medical process for himself and just get sicker and sicker and sicker. So by the time he was 46, it was hopeless. And I just felt like I listened to my own inner knowing. This guy told me that everybody has that, this 92-year-old. He said, if you need to get in touch with your own knowing of who you are truly. He said, and then every cell in your body is going to respond to what you tell it. You know, back then I really didn't understand. I was just following what he was helping me connect to my deeper part of myself. That's what I truly believe. So after like 3-4 years, I decided I'd done enough research. I had a license in my massage. I decided to go see a chiropractor I knew in New York City through someone else I knew to see how I could open up an office in New York City. Like, sure, you know. So my first office, I went to talk to him. He listened to me and he said, you know what? He said, I'm going to set this up for you. I'm going to set up your colonic equipment. I'm going to do it. So I was like, aha, this was so unexpected because I was only going to ask him to figure out how to set up an office, whereas he set one up in his office. And he said, I'll send you everybody. I said, oh, don't send me any men. He said, don't be ridiculous. It's half the population. So of course he sent me all men, and it taught me how to have boundaries, but also be myself and be able to connect to them on a heart level, but not, you know, on a level that's anything other than from the warmth of your own heart.
So what is colonics?
Colonics are basically a cleansing of the large intestine. So it's a very gentle process. And I discovered after a few years of doing this that the least amount of water you put in, the higher it goes, and it allows the body to do the work. So the water is a catalyst to allow your own system to do the work. But what happens in the colon is it's where everything on all levels, on your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level come through. It's like a channel that allows the body to move it out. So I got to see I've been doing this for 35 years, that it isn't just about what's in your colon. It's so much more than that. But it's also a tool that I understood that with water, everybody was walking around dehydrated. The biggest thing in colon hydrotherapy is to rehydrate the body as well as remove the waste in a very, very gentle way. I could see no matter what a person had, that immediately they felt better. You have 5-6 feet of large intestine. We don't deal with the small intestine, which is about 23 feet, which is where you digest and absorb most of the food. It's like if you never emptied the garbage, you can imagine what's going on in that 5 feet of large intestine. So it's really very simple, but it's an enormous prevention for people. And it's also my understanding too over the years was that if we are made up of 70% water, and I'm working with water, what an opportunity to be able to influence what that person says to themselves as the water is going in. It's changing the structure of their water inside their body. And most of what we drink in this world at this point is bulk water, which is coming out of our taps. It's in bottles. It's in plastic bottles. It's, to me, very well thought out in terms of how to keep people from recognizing who they are. If you bathe in it, you shower in it, you drink it. I mean, the opportunity to keep a mass population stupid is very simply by creating water that isn't alive anymore. It's dead, basically, unless it's structured, because we are naturally structured in our body. But if you don't drink structured water, again, you're depleting the body of its natural progression on all levels.
Now, you mentioned about how well thought out it is with regard to the water.
Yes.
But we can apply that to anything. And this is something that so many people, actually, probably 99.99% of the population do not understand, that the agenda is so precise in its way of managing our lives. And when I say managing, folks, I mean like managing, containing our lives so that we don't expand. So you could pick anything. You could pick diet. You could pick the media. You could pick anything. And you're going to see that the tentacles, it's a full spectrum. I hate to even use the word, but for lack of a better term, it's full spectrum dominance. So now when you talked about structured water, and I don't want to get ahead of you here, but what does that mean when you talk about structured water? Because I don't know what it means.
It means that it has patterns, specific patterns, geometrical patterns in the water that allow you to take in water that goes to every single cell that is naturally a geometric pattern within itself, every cell. So if you're taking that in, you're feeding your cell healthy water that, you know, we can go through Marcel Vogel and Victor Schomburger and Emoto. All those people from very early on understood that there's a shape and a pattern, you know, to everything. But especially in a human body, that if you take fluid in, it affects your blood in terms of the life force of the energy that you are able to utilize within your system. And all the water that goes through our taps is no longer structured, because structured water needs flow to be alive. It needs energy. You see it coming down through rocks and streams naturally in nature. It has its own shape and patterns. And when you build pipelines, especially plastic ones, because they even did away with the copper, which activates life in water, by the time you get it, and not only has it got everything in it that isn't sustainable through pesticides and fluoride and, you know, that affects your pineal gland.
Well, pharmaceuticals too.
Yes, everything is in that water, and you're drinking it. It is actually making you sick. Emoto was saying that that is what's going to happen to the water, but that we do have the ability to turn that around. That's what I feel is very powerful, is that each individual, if we can help them understand on the larger scale of everything that's going on, of course, you've been talking about it forever, is that just simply by connecting to the water you can create structured water. And there are companies now, John Butts, who's become the CEO, his level of understanding about structured water and why we need it is so incredible to listen to this guy. For every person to keep it simple is that it needs a shape and a pattern in order for it to be alive. And when you drink the water out of these plastic bottles, it has no living matter in it. And taking that in on a constant basis, they're telling you to drink, 8 glasses, 10 glasses of water a day. And what are they drinking? It's making you sick.
What about vapor distilled water and stuff like that? Is there any benefit to that? Because you see that's been introduced now into the supermarkets. And first it was spring water in BPA-free plastics, and then it went to vapor distilled water. So you could see that there's this progression going where they're trying to get, it appears they're trying to get a better quality of water to the consumer. But in your view, is that what is going on, or is it just more marketing mumbo jumbo?
It's more marketing mumbo jumbo. Absolutely. You can structure your water just with copper wire in a glass bottle. That's the simplest way to allow it to rejuvenate itself. We can go into quartz, crystal, which is in our computers. It's in our cell phone. It's in us as a liquid. We're liquid in our blood. We can go there, but and that can structure it very easily. They found that the future of computers isn't the microchip can't even hold the amount of information anymore that we have available. That one drop of water has infinite storage of information. So if the powers that be know that just one drop of water holds that amount of information, what do you think they want to do to us in terms of
contaminating the water?
Yes, totally. It's got nothing in it that provides sustenance to our living cells. We're a living being, and they know that.
So you mentioned the copper. So I know in homes many years ago, they'd have copper plumbing.
Right.
And today there is some copper plumbing, but then it quickly becomes plastic plumbing under your sink and in your bathrooms and stuff like that. So
right.
How would one use copper to structure the water? What do you have to do?
It's very simple. You can just get some copper wiring and, make it into a circular shape and put a glass bottle over it. You can put a copper piece on top of it and fill the glass bottle with water and leave it there. It will structure. That's the simplest way to do it.
Okay.
It's also what's happening with shungite and affecting, how to affect the EMFs in terms of the 5G. We could go into all of that. I'm not going off there right now, but it's allowing the water really to basically come alive. That's what you're doing.
I have a canister at home, Beverly, and it takes out the fluoride and all that stuff.
Right.
So if I wanted to structure that water, now I have copper wiring because I'll do electrical work in my house.
Yes.
So if I take copper wiring, do I wrap it around that canister? Would that work or no?
You just make a plate on the bottom, like a plate, copper plate.
Underneath the canister.
Yes. That really, truly is the simplest way to go. Or even put some quartz crystal or whatever in the water. That is a living entity that understands structure. It will structure the water.
I see. Okay, well, I'm going to do that as soon as we wrap up here.
Yeah. Well, it's very simple and very, I do that with the water I use for the colon hydrotherapy. So that even, it's even allows inflammation to be reduced very quickly when you do that. Because we're all walking around inflamed by everything that's happening in terms of our food and chemicals and, breathing. We're breathing in inflammation, basically. That's what I see, because everyone that comes is inflamed. That's what's going on. So we have the ability to reduce that very quickly.
What about clients that come to you that have or suffer from rheumatoid arthritis? Are you able to help them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, my teaching was, it doesn't matter what you have. If you could understand that you have to go to zero in order to change anything in your body, which for me over the years, I found that the best thing to do for anybody is water fasting, is you stop eating and you just allow your body to reset itself, the human growth hormone, your stem cells, you need fluid in your brain, is allowing your whole body to just take in structured water. Obviously, I would recommend. And over a period of time, people go, oh my God, but I can't go without food. What do I do with my hunger? And after 2 days, you're not hungry at all. In fact, you feel so peaceful and you're not craving anything. because the more, as long as we're eating, we're feeding the cravings. But if you stop, and even with juice fasting won't go to this level of healing.
So when you do a water fast, what's the prescribed number of days to do that? Is it 2 days, 3 days?
It depends on the person. But for you to go into ketosis, it takes about 72 hours. So, I have to work with each individual where they're at. I have to understand how they're functioning, where they're at psychologically, emotionally, to be able to go into this. And if you're eating, hamburgers and French fries, it takes time to weave your way into a fast. It would take maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get there. So you're coming off of everything that you're eating, so that by the time you're going into a water fast, you're really just having maybe some vegetable juice or fruit shake or something like that. So that, and then doing the colonic will immediately, people go through, but I don't want to go through feeling sick and those flu symptoms. When you have a colonic, you don't have to go through any of that whatsoever. None of it, because it's all gone. Because what's happening is the liver has to process all the waste in your body. And when you go through a detox, it's your liver that's trying to take care of those toxins, whereas the colonic will get rid of it. So your liver goes, I'm with you. I'm right there, and it starts to rejuvenate as well. Affects your whole system.
So after the 72 hours, Beverly, if somebody decides to eat, what do you suggest?
After 72 hours, fresh pressed juice. But I really would, I work with people where they go 5 days, 7 days, 14, in terms of really getting rid of what's going on in their system.
So if they go 7, 10, 14 days, they're just drinking water?
Water. As you go on, you can have what's called potassium broth, which is made with vegetables, but you just drink the broth. You can have, different kinds of herbal teas. You want to, it's like cleanse, nourish, and build. You want to rejuvenate your system all the way down to the cellular level. And the longer you fast, the better results you're going to get.
And they lose a lot of weight.
Yes, but that's never my focus. We're so weight oriented. And I believe from the therapy training that I've done that a weight problem is never a weight problem. It's also a hate problem, that hasn't really been dealt with.
You're talking about emotional aspects within the person?
Sure. That they're holding on to a lot of energies that usually aren't even theirs.
Right.
So we can go in a lot of different areas with that, but it really clears the energy of the person when you do water.
Okay, so, and I know I'm sounding really thick on this. So if they go 2 weeks with the water, with the structured water, I'm assuming there is some kind of diet that they should adhere to. What is that diet like?
So you have to come off the fast really, really slow, because that's where you're getting everything. You want to kick everything in again, but in a healthy way. So you're dealing with going from water to maybe fresh pressed juices to shakes, because you need the fiber, and then to raw fruit and salads, maybe some steamed veggies. For my own belief system and understanding, I come from plant-based. I think consciousness in terms of understanding, I don't believe we were ever meant to eat animals. Again, what you're bringing back to the cells is a structure that can communicate with each other on a whole different level. And so you get to go beyond your own physical being to understand what's actually happening around you and how connected you really are to nature, and that we are that there is no separation. The separation is in our mind that's happened to us on all levels. Our power and our way back is self-power, self-understanding. And to be able to do that, you need to keep the food light, and what's so great is that you don't have to eat a lot of food to be healthy. The less food you eat, actually, the healthier you are. But we're so conditioned to believe that we need food to live. It's a lie.
Well, they promote it. they promote it. I mean, right? We have fast food restaurants and we have the food channel and everything's about food, prepping food, how you can make it look pretty and all this stuff. They make rock stars out of these chefs, and,
yes,
right?
yeah,
And it's all about just pushing food. So that's the thing that, caught my attention is anytime they do something that over the top, you should pause and say to yourself, this is not good.
right,
Right? Because
right.
the powers that be, the matrix, the controllers are pushing this agenda.
Yeah.
So then let me ask this question. Vegetarians and vegans. I'm a vegetarian.
And I'm a vegan, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we see, like I was mentioning, where the controllers are pushing, just keep eating, right?
Right.
And then on the other hand, we also have them coming out with various celebrities that are promoting vegetarianism and veganism. So it almost seems like they're playing both sides of the field.
Yes.
Which is something that they do, right? This is the whole duality,
right,
right, of their program.
Yes.
So could you talk to us a little bit about some of the myths around, hey, if you don't eat meat, you're going to be missing these vitamins and so on. You're not going to be healthy. I have been a vegetarian now for over 2 years.
Yes.
And my health has been great.
Right.
I
Right.
haven't been impacted by not sitting down and eating a prime rib,
Right.
as an example, right, or chicken. So could you take us through that a little bit, if you could?
Well, again, that's the conditioning that we've had since we were kids. Eat your meat and potatoes. But they start earlier than that. I had a doula service in New York City for a long time where the promotion was not for the mother to really breastfeed the baby, where they get all the nutrients. You would go give birth in the hospital, and the first thing they'd want to do is give the baby, even though you said, I want to breastfeed, they would give the baby sugar water. That's a norm. And not only is it introducing sugar and awful water to the baby, but it's also a different sucking reflex when you drink from a bottle. So this is within the first 24 hours, an infant knows how to suck on a breast. What they've done in the first 24 hours, you give that baby sugar water and a bottle. It's very difficult for that baby to go back and breastfeed. So there you go. Oh, don't worry. Infant formula's fine. So the baby's not getting the bacteria it needs from the mom. Never mind cesareans. I mean, there's so much involved in this in terms of right from when you're born, what happens. So the understanding for parents, for education, for eating food comes from very, very early on, that you don't need to give a child meat or dairy for a child to survive. But we've been raised on that. So we're taught to believe that if you don't have meat every day and milk, that you're not going to grow properly, that something's going to happen to your bones. Whereas what happens with regular milk is very often the calcium is growing outside of the bone and not inside the bone. And they've found that in milk, casein is the number one turn on in cancer. They know how to turn it on and turn it off.
And that's in the milk?
It's in the milk.
Okay. Especially
the cows in this country, because they're different than cows in Europe. Isn't that amazing? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the whole system. If you take a look at every detail, it's brilliant.
In an evil way.
In an evil way, yes. Yes. There are those that know. And I think with shows like yours, we can educate and help people understand that they can literally change what they're doing. It is, yes, you're dealing with emotion and addiction and your connection, because that's what we've been programmed.
Our teeth are not designed for meat. We have what they refer to as the canines here.
Yeah.
But that actually is to bite into an apple or something, right? To grab it.
Right.
It's not to sit there and munch on a cow.
Yeah. We have arms to reach up and pick an apple or a peach or a pear or a plum, that have we're not taught that those fruits and vegetables contain everything. They contain protein, fats, sugars, that in an avocado or even an apple, it has everything in it. And all the dark leafy greens have more. This is what I teach is they've found it has more absorbable protein in kale than in a steak. So we don't need much. The most we need of protein is when you're an infant and your brain is growing so fast. After that, you don't. Look at the amount of diabetes and heart disease that we have in this country and all over the world because of what's being fed now to people. It's a crime.
And what's a proof point with that is I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said all of these urgent cares are going up like they're the new McDonald's.
Yes.
They're going up like fast food restaurants, and they're popping up. It's not just urgent cares, but they have all kinds of medical facilities. I mean, where I live here in Raleigh, North Carolina, I cannot believe how many medical buildings are going up. And there's a reason for that, right? It's because there's an anticipation that there's going to be a very high demand for people to be at those facilities.
That's right.
And the reason why they know about the demand is because they are creating it.
Absolutely. And you have the fast food restaurant right next door,
Right. So to me, that's the proof in the pudding. So anytime, it's like I said before, when they start promoting something and you see it ramping up, it means that this is an agenda item. This is something now, it's the time during their project plan. We'll call it like a project plan because that's what it is. It's a really long one, many, many years. But they've gotten to the point now where it's time to, get these medical facilities up and running, these urgent cares and so on, because a lot of people are going to wind up going to them.
Yes.
And to continue to perpetuate the whole thing about our health, they've created a perception in people that it's normal to expect that you're going to get sick, that you're not going to feel well, that you're going to be fatigued, that you're going to be depressed. It's all of this negative stuff, and so many people are drinking the Kool-Aid and believing it.
Well, now they're discovering, the whole gut-brain axis in terms of what's going on in your gut is affecting what's going on in your brain. 95% of what's in your brain, it's in your gut. 5% is in your brain of the dopamine and GABA. And when you don't feel good in your gut, you don't feel good mentally. It goes hand in hand. And so there's never mind the three brains in terms of your heart. So there's a definite alignment with the brain, the gut, the heart, all working in perfect harmony and coherence. And I believe what they've done with all of it in terms of even not breastfeeding and creating attachment and bonding in early infancy, then you get humanity that is not connected to the heart. And that's been going on for centuries, forever.
Yeah.
We have more neurons in our heart that are the same as the brain. I think there's over 40,000, I believe. So my father used to say to me, Bev, you can't think with your heart. You have to think with your brain. And I used to look at him like, how can you not know this? I was little.
Yeah.
I've always known this. It's just I feel like I'm being validated later in life now of what I felt I knew as a child.
It's interesting. When I say they, I'm talking about the controllers. They do tell you what's going on, but it's encoded, it's hidden, right?
Right.
So we're watching this TV series with Ted Danson. It's called The Good Place. And it's about these 4 people that die, and they initially believe that they've gone to heaven. But it turns out that the good place is really the bad place.
Yes.
Okay. And they tried to convince them that they're in the good place. And what it's all about is while they're thinking that they're in the good place, the beings that control the good place are always toying with their minds to get them to turn against each other, to fight, to compartmentalize, and all of that. And it's done in a humorous way. It's a comedy. But even though it's done in a humorous way, there is an underlying message in shows like that.
Yeah.
Right? So you could turn around and say, well, what are we always told about here? This is the good place, right?
Right.
Doesn't get any better than being here in the good old US of A. You have the best school systems, you have the best medical systems, you have the best this and that and blah, blah, blah. And then those that wake up realize, no, wait a minute, we're in the bad place.
Right. Right. And also, how can we educate and bring that out there? So
Right.
people that are asleep, are asleep, and everyone's taking sleeping pills. So, it's even worse in terms of they're not even getting messages that they could get when they're asleep.
Right. Well, it's very difficult. In fact, it's almost impossible to try to wake people up en masse. I have concluded, and you tell me if you agree, that after years of thinking that I can yell from the mountaintops and then people will just get it, that this is really about, at the end of the day, an individual journey.
Yes.
From a soul perspective.
Yes.
Right? It's inner development.
Right.
And you have to focus on that first. First of all, because you have to be healthy yourself.
Yes.
In order to be able to help others. If you are unhealthy from a soul perspective or even from a physical world, material world perspective, you're not going to be of much help to others.
Right.
I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, it's just the way it works. So, when I say that sometimes people get upset because they think that we're supposed to be out there just, spreading the word, which is what we're trying to do. But they interpret that type of position as selfish, as putting yourself first. And I say, well, it's not selfish, but you actually do need to put yourself first.
Yes.
Because you have to be healthy, both spiritually,
emotionally,
right, and physically, right?
Absolutely. Okay. I do understand that. I mean, doing the work I was doing in terms of the food and fasting and colonics over the years, I found that I felt I was missing the ability also to go deeper in certain ways with people on an individual basis. And so I discovered what's called the Hartford Family Institute, which is a training for body-centered psychotherapy. So you're including every part of you on a cellular basis and subtle energy. And I did that for 10 years, and that's been profound in the way I work with individuals, because you're taking in all of them and allowing them to go to a very, very deep place, emotionally, spiritually, in a way that they can themselves understand what's going on around them. So it's really growing awareness and consciousness for them. And just being a guide or a facilitator in terms of opening things up. And that's been incredibly powerful and helpful to work on an individual basis and also to do smaller groups. So I get what you're saying. Yes, of course, we want to go save the world, but we have to work on developing ourselves and working with people that are ready spiritually or on a soul level to hear what you have to say.
Sometimes I think to myself, maybe this is the way the world is supposed to be. In other words, we've entered into a classroom, right? And it would be like going to school and signing up for calculus. And then when you get there, you're like, you know what? I want it to be about biology.
Yeah.
And the instructor or the professor or the teacher is going to say, well, you signed up for calculus, so you're doing calculus, right?
Right.
So that's another way that I view it is that Mother Earth, and she goes through her cycles and we go through the ages, and at some point we will make our way out of the Iron Age, which is what I believe we're in now, right? And start that upswing,
yes,
that ascension, right, into the bronze, the silver, and then eventually back to the gold. So that's another thing that I have been, contemplating. I think right now, to be honest, we're in a transition period between the iron and the bronze. And this is why a lot of us have come here now to talk about the types of things that we're talking about right now. It's table setting. But this transition period could take hundreds of years. At some point, others are going to have to pick up the baton.
Right.
And move forward. And then eventually what will happen is a new cycle will be in play and things will be very different. Again, these are my personal thoughts, folks. I know there are people out there that are not going to agree with it. It's okay. We can agree to disagree. It's okay. So how do you view where we are at with this realm, with this reality, if you want to, well, I guess we can call it a reality. We're experiencing it, right? So we have to interact with it. So what are your thoughts about that? Is it designed to be this way so that we have to face these challenges, or is it not supposed to be this way and it fell into the hands of the bad guys and now we're trying to wrestle it back?
Well, I feel I know that it was a certain way and that we came here to grow in consciousness in our heart and have a knowing to help this planet and every being on it. And that there were others who chose the duality of that.
Yeah.
And instead of using it for good, chose to use power, which, is really force. It's a dominating power. If you're in your power and if I'm in my power and you're in your power, that's amazing what could happen. But if I have power over your power, then you disintegrate.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is what's happened to the majority of the people on this planet, is they're controlled.
Yeah, they're controlled. They gave up their power.
Yes.
Right. You want them to bring their empowerment back, but they've given it up to quote unquote authorities.
Yes. And so I think we have to move through that in order to have back what was originally probably planned for this planet eons ago. And I think it's probably gone through cycles of this more than a few times, so that as we grow on a internal soul level, that we're coming to more and more consciousness. I know Rudolf Steiner spoke about that at length. There are many people that have said it. And of course, what did they do with it? They put it like the Dead Sea Scrolls in jars hidden away so that we don't have access to our own knowing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, or stored in the vaults under the Vatican.
Oh, yeah. That's another story.
Wouldn't
right?
you love to go take a peek down there?
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Yeah. Can you imagine what's there?
Everything is down there. That's what's down there. Everything we want to know is down there.
I know. Yeah.
So, Beverly, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered?
Wow. I think we covered quite a bit. I just feel that we're touching different areas, and that there is so much more in terms of what we could talk about on a much deeper level. And perhaps this is a door, a portal to maybe go through, to say that, there are other beings helping us. We're not alone in this, that there is a design, because if there's hexagonal patterns in water, it's like, who are we? And what is this about? And I do believe that there's an absolute creative, inspiring opportunity for us as beings to really live the way we were meant to. And I'm going to hold that.
I say to people, whenever you want to be brought back to where you need to be from an inner mind perspective, a spiritual perspective, when things look bleak, when things look bad, especially, everything that's going on in the world, you have to think to yourself, do you really think that the creator, source, or God walked off the reservation? Do you really think that happened?
Right.
So I got triggered with this when you said that there's a design, and there is a design.
Yes, I believe that.
Absolutely, there's a design, and that's something that we must always keep in mind, because I believe part of this realm that we're in, its purpose is to disconnect us from source.
Yes, maybe that's the whole purpose.
Exactly.
And that we cannot be disconnected. We can never be separated.
Right. Very good. If my listeners would like to learn more about your work, where can they go to learn more?
They could go to beverlyblass.com, Ley, Beverly with an E. And I do have an Instagram page. I'm not really up on all the social media, but I am, writing a book. So hopefully that'll get done.
Very good.
And that's a way to reach me.
Okay, great. So we'll have that in the description box below, folks, and check out Beverly's work and her website and her Instagram page. And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the description box below. And as always, I would like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can find all my social media and web links by visiting my hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to check out my music and album releases. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone with the next show. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Hey there, girl, come on over here. Don't be shy, there's nothing to fear. I like your style, I like the way that you move. I love your smile, I really dig your groove. Take a trip with me, let your soul be free. Come on, girl, we can change the world. Let's do it now, let's make it real. Hey there, girl, it's a brand new day. Gonna shake things up and do it our way. Spread your wings and come fly with me. We won't look back because love is still free. Take a trip with me, let your soul be free. Come on, girl, we can change the world. Let's do it now, let's make it real. They're playing with our heads so we don't think. Trapped in a lie where eyes don't blink. Angry plastic freaks always in your face. We gotta do something to change this place. Come on, girl, look to the sun. Reach for the sky, we're gonna have some fun. Let's change the world, let's do it now. Hey there, girl, come on over here. Don't be shy, there's nothing to fear. I like your style, I like the way that you move. I love your smile, I really dig your groove. Take a trip with me, let your soul be free. Come on, girl, we can change the world. Let's do it now, let's make it real. They're playing with our heads so we don't think. Trapped in a lie where eyes don't blink. Angry plastic freaks always in your face. We gotta do something to change this place. Come on, girl, look to the sun. Reach for the sky, we're gonna have some fun. Let's change the world, let's do it now. Hey there, girl, it's a brand new day. Gonna shake things up and do it our way. Spread your wings and come fly with me. We won't look back because love is still free. Make it real. We're gonna change the world.